Hey everyone, I have an eerie story to share today. This happened a couple of years ago when I was living in a small town. You know how it is. Everyone knows everyone, and there are always those weird stories about the old houses around town. Well, this one involves a particular house on Maple Street that everyone avoided. One weekend, while hanging out with my friends, we were looking for something fun to do. That's when Jake brought up the house. He was always one for a good scare and challenged us to check it out. At first, we laughed it off, but then the idea started to creep into our heads. After a few drinks and some back and forth, we decided to go for it. I mean, how scary could it be? We arrived at the house around midnight with flashlights in hand. The place looked like it was straight out of a horror movie. The windows were boarded up, the paint was peeling, and the front yard was overgrown with weeds. You could practically feel the history in the air, like the house had stories to tell. As we approached the front door, I felt a weird knot in my stomach, but Jake, being the daredevil he is, pushed it open. The door creaked like it hadn't been touched in ages, and the sound echoed through the darkness. I hesitated for a moment, but my curiosity got the best of me. We all stepped inside. The interior was just as eerie as the outside. Dust covered everything, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew. We started exploring the first floor, shining our flashlights around and joking to lighten the mood. But as we moved deeper into the house, the atmosphere shifted, the jokes faded, and an uncomfortable silence filled the air. We found some old furniture, a broken piano in the corner, and even some creepy family photos hanging on the walls. But then we stumbled upon a narrow staircase leading to the basement. Now, you know I'm not one to back down from a challenge, but that staircase looked sketchy. The steps were warped, and it felt like they were just waiting for someone to fall through. But of course, Jake had to be the brave one and suggested we check it out. I could feel my heart racing, but we all agreed it would be the ultimate adventure. So down we went, one step at a time, the creaking sound growing louder with each step. When we reached the bottom, we found ourselves in a small, dimly lit room. It was mostly empty, except for a couple of old chairs and a table covered in dust. But what caught my eye was a small, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. It was oddly out of place, like it belonged to a different era. I walked closer, and as I did, I swear I saw something move behind me in the reflection. I turned around, but nothing was there. I brushed it off as my imagination and called the others over to check it out. When I mentioned what I saw, they laughed it off, telling me I was just being paranoid. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. We decided to take some pictures for fun, and that's when things got weird. In almost every photo, there was a shadowy figure lurking in the background. At first, we thought it was just the bad lighting, but as we reviewed the shots, it became clear that something was standing behind us in every single one. My heart dropped. I wanted to leave, but Jake insisted we stay just a little longer. As we hung around, the temperature dropped noticeably, and we could see our breath. It felt like someone was watching us. That's when we heard it, a faint whisper echoing through the basement. We all froze. It sounded like a child's voice, but we couldn't make out the words. My blood ran cold. Panic set in. We decided to head back upstairs, but as we turned to go, the basement door slammed shut behind us. We tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. I could feel the walls closing in and my heart was racing. It felt like we were trapped in a nightmare. After what felt like an eternity of pushing and pulling, the door finally creaked open on its own. We didn't waste a second and bolted upstairs, scrambling out of the house. As we reached the front door, I glanced back one last time. The mirror in the basement caught my eye, and for a split second, I thought I saw a child's face staring back at me. I can't even describe the fear that washed over me. Once we were outside, we didn't stop running until we were back in our cars. We all sat there, breathing heavily, trying to process what had just happened. I know it sounds crazy, but something felt wrong about that house. I still get chills thinking about it. After that night, we swore we'd never go back, but you know how rumors spread in small towns. A few weeks later, I heard that someone had moved into the house. I never found out what happened to them, but I often wonder if they experienced anything strange. So that's my creepy story about the house on Maple Street. If you ever find yourself in a situation like that, trust your gut. Sometimes it's best to leave the creepy places alone. Thanks for listening, everyone.